Hey guys. So yeah, this one kind of took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to do a chapter today, but yeah, it's apparently got released early. Um, so right from the jump with this chapter of My Hero Academia, I love how this chapter is basically dedicated to essentially Stain calling out All Might's bullshit. Like from the very moment he defeated All for One back in the Villain Raid arc, All Might's been on this very hard to watch streak of just feeling bad for himself, thinking he had nothing to offer society anymore. Now that he didn't have his quirk, since the last of One for All, burnt inside of him burned out. Like he felt in that moment like he was no longer a symbol, so all he could do was train Izuku to be that symbol. But the entire time, this entire time, All Might has failed to understand why people saw him as that symbol to begin with. It wasn't because of his quirk, or at least not entirely so. It was because, in some small way, for however flawed the idea of a symbol piece was, it still inspired people to be better than themselves. And even though people have largely turned on heroes, All Might included, there are still those like that woman he saved that remembered what All Might represented. He represented the good in humanity. And from the moment he retired, All Might had kind of forgotten what power he held, and not from his quirk, but from his words. Those held, like, All Might's words, the words of saying, "I am here, I am the one, I'm here to protect you," all that stuff. Those words held more power than anything in his fists, and that's what Stain is trying to tell him, is to just stop wallowing in self-pity and realize he hasn't lost anything other than his drive to be that same inspiration he always was. And honestly, I feel this is building All Might up as less of a martyr now, and more like a key figure that will push towards that brighter future alongside Izuku and the others. Like Stain in this chapter, he made a point to focus on Class 1A in this chapter, and I feel that him mentioning Class 1A in a very loose sense is pushing forward the idea that All Might and Class 1A are going to be the ones to collectively change the future of this world. And I'm believing less and less that Horikoshi's putting All Might on the path to die after this chapter. Like it's feeling less and less like All Might's purpose is to die now, and more like he does actually have a much greater plan for All Might, especially with this moment of Stain just realizing you haven't lost anything, dumbass. You're just wallowing in self-pity, but realize that it wasn't just your quirk that made you who you were. It was what you represented, what ideals you stood for, kind of thing. Like that was what Stain was doing, making him realize that yeah, he hasn't lost his ideas. It's just he hasn't lost what made him All Might to begin with. It's just wallowing in self-pity at the idea that he lost his quirk. And yeah, let's talk about Stain, because everything in regards to his character it truly amazes me how even now in this world completely consumed in darkness, that the one marked as a villain is the one not only saying what needs to be said, but even now is the only one who still believes in his convictions that society can only survive with true heroism. And it's not only within that same darkness where he has seen that spark emerge, but that he believes that nothing short of like true heroism is society's only means to move forward. And that is something that has definitely been pushed forward as well within these first few chapters. And the thing is, honestly, if we hadn't gotten Stain's past told in the pages of Vigilantes, I'd say now would be a good as time as any for a backstory. But I don't know how much of Stain's history can be told other than the events that lead up to the main story. But yeah, I guess at this point I just want as much Stain as I can get after this chapter. And honestly, even now, I feel he's going to serve a much bigger role than what we're seeing. With that said, this chapter, and honestly this phase of the arc, has yet to address the big question I've got, which is where are we going from here? I mean, I guess technically we've entered the planning phase for the characters to strategize the next move now that Class A has already grouped back, but between last week's chapter and this chapter, it's kind of brought up the question: Are we still going to be what's the next big thing from here? Are we going to be dealing with smaller threats, or is the league going to start making moves from here? That's the one question I need answers beyond this point, because the character, don't get me wrong, the characterization and character moments we're getting in these chapters is amazing, but if I did have one little quibble with these past couple chapters, is that it doesn't feel like it's moving, like the narrative is moving forward all that much now, at least right now anyway. But yeah, but yeah, I'm hoping within the next couple chapters we just move forward to what the next phase is and all that stuff. Now, with that said, I rarely talk about this, but I really want to talk about panel layout and construction, because honestly, I feel this is the most cinematic that Horikoshi's gotten with this chapter. And what I mean is that Horikoshi's artwork has always been amazing. Like, the man is just absolutely... every time the man draws, every page, every panel drips with detail. But the interesting thing is, within the bounds of his artwork, he's always more or less kept it, I felt, within the bounds of a two-dimensional space. But here, there were moments that felt they were leaping off the page, and just this more, I don't want to call it realistic perspective, but just a more three-dimensional, and sort of just pretty much just pretty much realistic perspective in some ways, because to everything. And maybe that's something Horikoshi has always done, but only now am I noticing it due to the darker tone and narrative direction of this arc. Like, if anything, I think the direction that the story has taken so far has actually allowed Horikoshi's artwork to shine the most, and brought it to the forefront more than it ever has in any other arc or part of the story before. And oddly enough, the moment that really resonated with me in regards to this is when we get that single panel at the end of the chapter, and with the fist of the statue being held up and the rain stopping. Like, that felt like a scene you'd capture in a frame. That there are so many moments. There are so many moments like that of artistic realism, almost, you could say. Yeah, I think that's the word I was looking for. Artistic realism that just feels so genuine and feels so real. And yeah, I feel this is kind of one of those moments. This is one of those chapters that just kind of nails that. Like, we're getting so many real raw emotions and feelings in this chapter that I love. But one thing I also like is just like how that dog woman Izuku saved was the first one to come to his aid. Ultimately, it's the one All Might saved that came to his aid, albeit in a slightly more indirect way. But by pretty much, she didn't come help him directly, but she has been cleaning up his statue, taking all the graffiti off. She's been pretty much the one who's. She's the one who, just from saving All Might from basically One for All at that time, or All for One at that time, she's been the one who's there and saying she's the one whose life, I guess, was ultimately changed the most by All Might, and now that All Might has seen for himself just what he has done. He really needs to see just pretty much how much his words are what ultimately made him, his words, his inspiration, the way he inspired people. That's what made him All Might. Not his quirk, not his power. It's just who he was, what he believed. That's what That's what made All Might who he was, and he needs to get back to that. And I love, again, I just love how this chapter was kind of focused on just calling All Might out on that stuff. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst, Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the notification bell, the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.